Great. Well, looks like we've people have started to join the session, so we will get started. So, hi everybody. My name is Anna Abdelnoor. I am co-founder of Isla, which is a recently launched non-profit organisation that is making moves in the event industry to prioritise sustainability, accelerate our transition as an industry to become more sustainable, align ourselves with national and global goals to limit warming to 1.5 degrees over the next 10 years. And we talk to all parts of the industry, so agencies, suppliers, venues, print companies, exhibition organisers, the whole shebang. We recognise that the only way we're going to make change is to start conversation following the guidance of the UN IPCC, the Panel on Climate Change, for radical collaboration cross-sector. That is what we're doing. You can find out more where we are isla.co.uk. I'll pop some more info in the chat. But we are joined today by Selina Donald from The Bulb, which is a consultancy service supporting with sustainability strategy, Michael Gietzen from Identity Group, and Rachael Giordani from Pioppo, fantastic supplier centering sustainability. So we're going to just dive straight into kind of a Q&A session today. Please feel free to pop any questions that you have into the chat. If there's any kind of observations, it's going to be very conversational. And so please do feel free to participate in that conversation. So I guess I will go straight to Selina, because I think part of what we talk about is embedding sustainability within our practices and activities. So kind of kicking over to you, Selina, as the strategist. It can take quite a bit of work to do what we need to do to get into the right places, although one of our key supports is to try and make that as easy as possible, and it's something that we look at in our training. But tell us more about how strategy plays a critical role in enabling sustainable practices.
Yeah, I think for me, leadership can no longer afford to not see sustainability as part of their business strategy. The way that sustainability needs to be embedded, it needs to be at the core of business strategy and embedded in corporate culture in order for it to work and to essentially sustain. Otherwise, it just becomes a separate thing that people don't do. And in order to do that, to ingrain it into your working practices and business, you need to have a strategy about how you're going to do it. So how are you going to analyse your risks, your opportunities, understand what your issues are as a business, and what you need to focus on? So that can be anything from energy efficiency to waste management to how you look after your food, materials production, diversity and inclusion. There's so many different things that could be part of your sustainability strategy. And then once you've got it nailed down over what you're going to focus your strategy on, then it's about embedding that into your business practices, setting targets, KPIs. And then thinking about how you can embed it in your operations. And that operational framework is really well set out using a tool like Isla, where it's made for those on the ground realities of being on site, being really busy, and having like a simple, easy to use tool that can bring to life your strategy when you're within like a live event scenario. So strategies need to be part and parcel of your whole business strategy.
Thanks, Selina. Michael, that ties in quite nicely to a lot of the work you're doing at the moment. Obviously, you're seeing it come through a lot from clients and needing to be able to respond to that. So how have you been approaching that as an agency?
Thoroughly. I think there's two. I think there is the practical application of everything we're doing, and then I think there's also the educational part of what we're doing. And I think because of the lack of of live events at the moment, we've been given a kind of a generous year-long period to plan better with clients about what that return is going to be like. And so I think we've seen the growth of sustainability or sustainable environmental impact become more relevant in pitches and tender work that we're doing. I think the greatest challenge we're having is, okay, so how are we budgeting for this in this project? And I think in that procurement process, we're struggling to see where the two align. There's a genuine appetite and a recognition that we need to do something differently, yet we haven't worked out a way of making that a fair procurement process, because obviously to do something truly sustainable, there probably will be an increased price tag associated with it. And yet, how do you level that out in a procurement process that competitively looks at the numbers? That's one. And I think once we're looking at that education piece of the things that can be done, how bold you want to be and how hard you want to take it. The second is practical application of it. And so there's even the amount where I feel like we're almost champions in that area from an agency perspective. There's still an awful lot of work to be done with our team, and that starts at the genuine processes that we're going to be doing from cradle to grave of the project to remove waste or look at sustainable advances we can do. But it's that whole design phase, and hence working with you guys is if we can design out as much of the stuff as possible beforehand, then it's not a costly afterthought after. So it really is that education piece for the clients, and also just our internal learning at the moment.
Well, that leads on really nicely to conversations that you and I have been having, Rachel, around that education. I think, from the supply chain perspective, you often find yourself as that last point of call, really. And so it'd be interesting to hear a little bit about the challenges that you face in that position, how it impacts your ability to practice sustainably, but also kind of some of the ways you've overcome this. And I think it ties in very nicely to Michael's point around education, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think, we all know that build items are really heavy hitters when it comes to sustainability. And we get to see firsthand the real wasteful practices of the industry. But Anna, as you said, being the last point of call can bring challenges to our sustainable practice. And I think it's not about blaming others. It's just about creating awareness. But and it's been said just now, but I think the biggest challenge is, we're not involved in the initial sort of development stage of the event. So instead of leaning on us for our sort of expertise and knowledge, sort of really discussing maybe smart design, alternative materials, onward life planning sort of assets, we can really bring our knowledge to support these new sustainable practices. Something that I believe that sort of currently, or well previously before the pandemic, it was a real reactive approach. So the priority was on time and budget, instead of sort of proactively and consciously discussing sustainability. And I think tight budgets for us can often force us to really push down cost and opt for processes and materials that aren't necessarily the most sustainable option. And I think that leads on to sort of Michael's comments, but that is something that we really need to work on. But I think, as I said, it's not about blaming others, and it's about us all sort of playing our part as well. So for us, we've been really encouraging clients as we've been sort of slowly talking and re-engaging with sort of projects that are coming up, looking at alternative materials, different build options, looking at swapping materials for perhaps sustainable alternatives, which isn't always clear cut, but I think we're sort of slowly making progress on that front. I think also the sort of the need to have more storage capacity as we start to discuss things like reusing, refurbishing, repurposing of assets. We're going to need to have storage that's really accessible, so that when our clients call upon us, we can grab those assets and from experience, those storages were often locked away and not really considered. So that's something that we've been really looking at as to how we can support our clients with maybe kind of inventory lists and things.
Yeah, I think that's the thing, is to be able to quickly and easily and accessibly recognize what you have already in order to build that into what you're planning to do, and how you can then shape the conversations with your clients, whether those are direct with agencies or direct with brands. But I think to your point about budget, and this is one question I'd love to ask you, Selina. I think budget often becomes sort of a non-compromising item, but kind of one definition of sustainability that exists is about meeting the needs of the future without compromising the needs of the present. But Selina, what is your take on that? Like, do you think we can afford not to compromise in the return to in-person, and how do we look at that from a budgetary perspective, if you've got any insights into that?
Yeah, I mean, it seems to be like the ongoing topic, really, that sustainability equals more money. And I think in the short term, definitely it's an investment, like there's no doubt about it. But I don't think in the long term we can afford to go back to business as usual. Like, it's not just governments who are being held to account about their sustainability. It's our clients. So brands across the world, sustainability is at the top of the global agenda for everyone. But not only that, consumers. So I read the other day, because I was writing a piece around like the rise of the consumer activist, and Pinterest alone had 256% rise of people just searching for sustainable living and sustainable products. And that transfers over to events, because events just show what a brand stands for, what it values, how it uses its resources. Like you guys were saying about looking at repurposing and reusing things. And I'm in conversations with one client about how they can use a whole warehouse full of assets and don't need to redesign something new every time. And that's a real thing. And obviously budget plays into that. So if you think about an approach where you do take on board redesigning and reusing, then that does bring costs down, obviously. So it's about the way that you look at it. If we like a circular economy approach does bring costs down in the long term, it might just need a short-term investment. But I really don't think that we can afford to go back to business as usual. I just read something before we had this, before we came on for this call, that for building back better, so the world's governments, the 50 top governments have spent $14.6 trillion announcing Build Back Better, but only 2.5% of that is for the environment, which is shocking when we think about how climate change is impacting on everything we do. And that also, so it just really shows to me that the onus is on businesses to build back better, and for businesses to take this into hand, and businesses to invest in the short term, but look at the long term.
Yeah.
So yeah,
actually,
hear what you got.
I was reading a similar article, and it's why they said that the delay of COP26 was probably the best thing that ever happened to the world, is that at the same time Boris and the rest of the world have the campaign Build Back Better, is it's done now under the light of COP26. And I think that, I hope that someone takes that exact stat to that summit, and that they really do think about how they do something very differently. And I'm hoping that'll be a lens that will really play into our hands for doing it differently.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think, sorry, go on. I was just going to say.
Well, no, yeah, go for it.
I was just going to say, you can see like with the activism and people. So we obviously had the COP and the Build Back Better, and everyone's shouting about it. And then there was the planning permission going ahead for building another coal mine in Cumbria. And that's been paused at the moment because of the outrage, because people are going, hold up, that doesn't sound, that's not right. When we can't say we're building back better and then build a coal mine that goes completely against that. And so it just shows the power of the consumer, and then it's going to be the power of indeed to events as well. So I think, sorry, I get on my soapbox about.
No, it's okay. I know, I love you on your soapbox, Selina. It's one of my favourite things to watch. But I suppose what I was going to say is kind of pulling it back to what we've talked about, that there's a need on businesses. And I think one of the things at Isla that we recognise is that how do we as events organisations, events businesses, respond to our clients' needs and respond to those challenges with actual solutions? Because we spend so much time talking about needing to be more sustainable, needing to be more accountable, but how do we actually go about doing that? So Michael and Rachel, you are both members of Isla, and so I'd just really love to kind of get your take on that, because so Michael, you joined late last year, and I'd just love to know what was your motivating factor for becoming part of the Isla network, and how have you benefited from that relationship to date?
Yeah, so I think all part of our strategic objectives of deciding to take sustainability seriously and genuinely. We needed to find an industry body that we could kind of align ourselves to. Whilst fairly embryonic in its life, the ambition is really well placed and will hopefully unify. I think one of the best things that's happened, from COVID is the unification of the events industry in some way at the moment. It's not clear how one industry, one voice, and the rest of them will end up because of their own sustainability, but financially. But actually, I think we really struggle from a unified industry voice and body and set of guidelines. And so we really wanted to be part of that movement and benefit from your experience. And I think there'll be lots of things that go on where we need to dip in and have support, and there'll be other areas where we're going to trailblaze and break new ground in that area. So that was absolutely one of it. And then I truly believe in it will be an industry kite mark in months or years to come that will resonate with events that are done well, and we believe in that.
Thanks, Michael. And what about you, Rachael? Because you joined earlier this year and you've been a really active member so far. You've joined our working groups. Would you be able to tell people a little bit about your experience of Isla so far?
Yeah, sure. So, first of all, I was really excited to discover Isla, and I think the way it involves the whole industry, I think that is really unique and such a great opportunity to really all come together. And I think when you come together, you really start to understand the magnitude of the work that needs to be done. As you said, Anna, we decided to join the working group, and we meet every 2 weeks. And that, as a set build company, that gives us such a unique opportunity to really listen to people's pain points, struggles, how they're overcoming things at every level. So it really helps us to know how to serve better in terms of sustainability. And it also, I think, allows us to represent the set builders and to get our voice heard.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I think it's we work so much in silo as an industry, and it's one of the things that we recognise that it works to a degree to be functioning in silo, because everything happens very segmented and regimentally, and that functions for the events industry, but it actually doesn't enable us to be agile or proactive. We're forced to be responsive. So from that side of things, being able to talk to all people within the industry and share on that sense. So I think just what would be great, Chris, just say yes. It's a UK based initiative. We would love to be a global organisation. So feel free to drop us an email and we can have a chat. But just in terms of kind of a few last thoughts before we go into a bit of a Q&A, I'd just love to kind of ask each of you kind of what's your one key thing that you think is the most important for the industry to start back better from a sustainability perspective? What's the one thing you'd love to see, or you'd love to be doing, or you'd love for the messaging to be about? So Selina, a bit an off the wall question. I know you aren't necessarily prepared for this, but what are your thoughts on that?
Shall I jump in?
Yeah, go for it.
I think the education of the industry is really key, first of all, and that's where Isla obviously is excelling really well, but just people understanding what the impacts are and understanding how they can solve them, and how not to be overwhelmed by it is the big thing, and then starting to break that down into manageable chunks that you can control and you can influence. So just having a framework to do that, I think, is definitely for me just the first step into moving forward.
Thanks, Selina. Yeah, for anybody that's interested, we'll drop a link to the website and the training on there, so you can kind of take a look into that. Training's included in part of our membership for anybody that's interested. Rachael, what about you? Do you have a kind of a key takeaway, key hope for sustainability moving forward as we build back better?
Yeah, I would echo what Selina said. I think education is the number one thing. I think since joining Isla, we didn't know what we sort of didn't know. We are learning every single day, and really understanding best practice is the key to really starting to deliver on them, I think. And it's, you start to unpick the different levels, and you go deeper and deeper, and we're just sort of at the surface level at the moment, but it's the more education, and Isla is really great at, sort of opening the doors and really allowing people to start asking questions and sort of involving their whole team, I think, in that journey.
Yeah, thanks, Rachel. Michael, just anything from you?
I've got two, actually. I had to scribble the
Go
first
for it. Yeah, no, go for it.
because education was stolen twice. It's made me just think that one is that budget for sustainable solutions are outside of tendering budgets, and they should not be scored. And you can innovate and then work with the client, and I think that would allow agencies to breathe innovation all over the project and where you can do it, and then there's a shopping list at the end of it and it's not scored, and then you work with the client to do it. And I think if they could pivot and change like that, it will open up good ideas and how to do projects. And the second would be benchmarks, and I think what Isla brings to the table is having an industry specific body that can relate to the requirements, whether it be a conference, an exhibition, a festival, whatever it may be, that it's relevant. And this one's for free, is that maybe there should be like an Isla bronze, silver, gold standard of what it is. And I think if we're going to build back better, then clients could. You don't have to be over ambitious in your first bit. You could just say, actually, I'm really proud. Mine got to a bronze level standard, and that's 2022's aim. And actually, by 2030, we want to be a gold standard. A bit like B Corp and things like this. And I think that will really help the industry get behind something and build.
Yeah, it's incoming, Michael. It's incoming.
No,
thanks for the press release. No, I agree. I think it's one of the pieces of key feedback that we have from so many individuals in the industry is some opportunity to be able to kind of benchmark what you're doing and understand how you're performing, to know what is the basic level that we should be operating at, and how do we do that, but then how do we go beyond that and perform even better. And I think sustainability is both a competitive element for many suppliers and agencies. It is something that people may elevate their pitches on, but at the same time it shouldn't be a competitive element to be doing the main, the minimum that we should be doing as an industry to support our national and our international aims and objectives and targets. So benchmark standard. Thanks, James. I agree. It's incoming. It's part of the working group that we are delivering on every 2 weeks. No, it's great, Michael. So we've just got a few minutes left. Has anybody from the people taking part in the session, do we have any questions or comments that you'd love to put to any of our panelists? I know that we've got one from. I'm interested in hearing your comments regarding sustainability / green versus COVID safety. Selina, I don't know if you want to talk about this. We're actually doing a session in a few weeks with Selina as part of our own Isla Revive series on COVID safety and sustainability. But do you have any key points that you might be able to offer?
Yeah, I think this is going to be really at the forefront of everyone's planning, because at the moment, in order to be COVID safe, we need a lot of stuff. We need PPE, a lot of it's plastic. We haven't got ways to get rid of it really easily. And so I did pull together some guidelines, but they were pulled together last year, when I feel was a much more naive time, when we just had one lockdown and not three. And so they definitely need updating, but just some tips on thinking about waste management and purchasing PPE from more responsible suppliers who are using really brilliant recycled materials, looking at reusables, and also looking at tools for social distancing. There's a really good tool called One Plan that I'm really keen to use once we start moving into live events, and to get clients that I work with using. And that helps you plan social distancing entrances and exits, and how to stagger people. So just, I think moving forward for me, just a successful event is going to be measured on how sustainable it was and how safe it was. And they should be the key factors and the KPIs that come out of it.
Thank you. Just for anybody that is interested in taking a look at that guide, it's on Selina's website, isn't it, available for download? It's thebulb.eco. Is that right? I've just popped it in the chat, so I hope that's right. Yeah, you can jump on there and you'd be able to access that download guide. But like I mentioned, Selina's going to be doing a session with us in a few weeks on PPE and sustainability. So I think, unless we don't have any other questions from the audience, just checking in. No, looks good. So I just want to say thank you, everybody, for joining us today. Thank you to Selina and Michael and Rachel. It was really brilliant having a conversation with you. I know this is being recorded, and so it will be shared post-event. So do share it around, get involved with Isla, take a look into the fantastic companies that have joined us today. And thank you, everybody, for giving up your time this afternoon to chat. It's been great.
Thank you.
Lovely to see you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.